This is a story of overnight success. It's also a Hollywood story, but not the kind Hollywood likes to tell. It's about an outsider who almost by accident ends up in a position people in the movie business fantasize about. But what it's really about is what it feels like to create something personal, and hand that creation over to strangers. It happens every day in the movie business. But what doesn't happen is bumping into that thing you created years later and realizing it's bigger than you are. This may be the trickiest question I'm going to ask you. Can I introduce you as the writer and director of Love and Distrust?
You could potentially introduce me as the writer-director of Love and Distrust, and it would be half true. Actually, it would be 1/5 true.
That's my friend and fellow filmmaker, Eric Kometz. Because of where this story's going, I'll say his name again. Eric Kometz. He's the hero of this tale. In order to know who Eric is, you should probably know two things about him. First, he's from Ohio. That means he's honest, which can occasionally be an obstacle in the film business. The second thing you should know is his personal war story. Everyone in Hollywood has one.
I'd been writing screenplays for a while, but nothing was getting made. And then one day I get a call from Ted Demme.
This is Ted Demme, the Hollywood movie director.
Yes, he had just finished directing Blow. He was looking for his next project. He had read one of my scripts and wanted to make it. And suddenly things started to pick up for me, because Ted very much became a mentor in my life. He was able to get the film cast, get the studio to greenlight it, and we were about to begin pre-production in Toronto.
Probably about 4 to 5 weeks out from production, and I got a call. It was my agent, and he said, "Have you turned on the news yet this morning?" Ted Demme had collapsed the day before playing basketball and was pronounced dead that morning of a heart attack. They replaced the director, and we had a director that just no longer wanted to direct the script that I'd written. The director ultimately did bring another writer up, and we'd sit in the room 7 a.m. in the morning, and he would say what he wanted the scenes to be, and he would look to me and say, "Can you write that?" And I said, "No." I mean, it was a brother story, and he wanted to take it away from the brother story. And my brother had just passed away the prior year. I'd lost my brother and Ted Demme. So for me to change that from a brother story was very difficult. So he would then look at the other writer and say, "Can you make the changes that I want?" And the other writer would say, "Sure, I can do that." And by the end of the week, they had a completely different script. Our actors lost faith with the script that was being handed to them. And our lead actress revealed that she was 4 months pregnant and no longer could do the film. And then our actors also dominoed and fell apart. And now I got a call from the studio, and they were going to pull the plug on the movie. And I had 24 hours to go up to Toronto, clean up my apartment, and get back to LA.
The studio spent $2 million before sending his script to the graveyard, a dusty shelf of movies owned by the studio that will never see the light of day. And with it, they buried 3 years of Eric's life.
So right now, having gone through Hollywood's system, I feel like I'm still back at square one, which is I've decided to go back to independent filmmaking, the spirit that brought me out here.
Eric and I are making an independent movie together, a time travel romance based on a story by a famous author. As indies, we're free of the big studio politics that's ruined so many movies. We're also free of something else: money. Which is why on a Sunday afternoon not long ago, we found ourselves putting on clean shirts, filling our pockets with business cards, and heading off to a place called the American Film Market.
So the American Film Market happens every year in Santa Monica, California, at the Lowe's 8-level hotel. And it is a place for distributors from around the world to come and buy and sell movies that one might consider schlock. I'd always heard about the American Film Market, but I'd never been to it. I was always told that it was quite an adventure.
Can you just describe the atmosphere?
So you walk in on the 5th floor, you're surrounded, you're just inundated by posters coming at you for movies like Mutant Girl Squad, or spiders, giant spiders in 3D, or Sharktopus.
Half shark, half octopus. All killing machine.
There's a creep show creature with a double feature. A freak ass beast, small flesh you beast. In charge of a small beak, kept at bay. You can never get away. Come on!
And different territories are walking around the floors of this hotel. A representative from a Romanian company, a Hungarian company, an Italian company, and they're going into these hotel rooms and they're buying distribution rights for their country to these movies. And this idea of us going there to potentially help get our film financed and made was somewhat of a long shot lark.
I know this whole thing was against your better judgment, and I will admit we did not get off to the world's greatest start.
We're walking around going up to distributors and asking them what kind of movies that they would be interested in distributing. And when people found out that we were just there without a movie but trying to get financing for a movie, they were asking us to leave the rooms. Honestly, about 2 or 3 times people told us that we were taking up space in their room for like other people that they would like to be talking to. We got ushered out. We had doors physically closed on us. And I remember every time we'd get to the end of the hallway, Jeff would always be like, well, let's just keep going up another flight and see what happens. But when all we see are giant sharks and giant spiders and monster movies, I didn't know why I was here or what I was doing at the American film market. So we walked through the 5th floor, nothing. 6th floor, doors closed on our face. 7th floor, again. You just had to shift your mindset from this is miserable to let's just see how many people we can get to say no to us today. 8th floor now, I remember walking down the hallway and finally seeing one poster that interested me. It was a very simple poster, didn't have any monsters or aliens on it, and it was just a guy and a girl on a bridge with the girl in the guy's arms about to embrace and a kiss. And the title of this movie was called Love and Distrust. And it had all these big name actors in giant font down the center of the poster.
Okay, so let's just get the name dropping out of the way. Who was in this movie?
It had Robert Downey Jr., Robert Pattinson, Amy Adams, James Franco, and Sam Worthington.
Now, for people who don't see a lot of movies, we should say these are probably 5 of the most recognizable actors anywhere in the world right now. And to see them all in one movie.
Yes, that's what's so surprising about it.
So what were you thinking when you saw that poster?
I was thinking, how sad that we are in an economy in such a state in the film industry. Collectively, those 5 actors have been in movies that have grossed over $2 billion at the box office. And to see that movie going probably straight to DVD, how were we ever going to get our movie made and financed? So I remember looking at Jeff and saying, I wonder who is making that movie? Who is the guy behind Love and Distrust that got those 5 actors involved in a film that is being sold at the American film market? So I walked my way through this sort of crowded hallway over to the poster for a better look. And I looked down at the credit blurb, and it said written and directed by Eric Kometz. Me. My name is on this poster.
What was your first reaction when you saw the name Eric Kometz staring back at you?
I remember looking around the festival thinking, where am I? I can't understand how we walked by so many hundreds of posters that day. And the one poster that I walk over to and look at the credit blurb, it has my name as the writer and director of this big film that I'd never even heard of. Like, is my name on all the posters at this festival? What strange place have I walked into? My next thought was, obviously there's another Eric Kometz, who's a writer-director.
That must have been a depressing moment.
Oh, yeah. Another Eric Kometz who overnight, out of nowhere, has written and directed a movie with giant actors in it. I got to leave this town or change my name. I'm screwed. Every meeting I'll go into for the rest of my life in the film industry will be, no, I'm the other Eric Kometz, the one you haven't heard of.
You know, that does seem pretty far-fetched now, but what was the alternative? That you really had directed this movie, but you'd just forgotten.
Yeah, it was very much a parallel universe. And then once we ran through the options, we said, well, we've got to find whoever is distributing this movie, whoever represents this movie, they'll know what's going on. But their door was the only door that was closed. And I remember kind of knocking and peeking my head in, and there was a meeting going on of 4 people in suits all sitting around talking. And I said, excuse me, could I talk to somebody for a moment about Love and Distrust? And this guy just kind of waved me off and said, yeah, can you come back? We're busy. We're in the middle of a meeting right now. And I said, well, I'd really like to talk to somebody about your poster out here because I'm Eric Kometz and my name is on your poster as the writer and director of this film. And this guy stood up and came over. He was just about ready to close the door on us and wanted now to see my lanyard, and looks at it and sees that it says Eric Kometz, and he looks at me and he extends his hands and he says, Eric Kometz, so glad to meet you. I'm a big fan of your movie.
And now you had landed at the bottom of the rabbit hole.
Totally. And now I'm just going with it. I figure, you know what? If people think that this is what's happening, this is what's happening, and maybe it really did happen, and maybe I did change the universe. So I just said thank you very much. And then I said, can you just tell me what's going on here? And he said, well, you're the director, you're the writer, you wrote Grasshopper, right?
Grasshopper.
Right, Grasshopper. That was the first time that I had really thought about that movie in a long time.
So what is Grasshopper?
Grasshopper, it was the title for a short film that I wrote and directed when I was in film school. Back then, I had met James Franco, who had starred in the film. I had sold the rights to a small distribution company on the East Coast. And they told me that they would contact me if the movie ever got picked up, if they ever played it on an airplane, if anything ever happened with it. And I had honestly completely forgotten. But it was a short movie. And when this guy says, you're the writer-director of Grasshopper, I remember then he was telling us that he had bought the rights to 5 short films, Grasshopper being one of them, and had edited them and strung them together to make it appear as though it were a feature film.
And each one of these films starred one of those huge name actors?
Yes. So they had a short film that had Robert Pattinson in it. They had a short film with Robert Downey Jr. in it, one with Amy Adams in it, one with Sam Worthington, and mine with James Franco. And they had marketed it to make it look like, if you watch the trailer, it appears as though these 5 actors are almost interacting and playing off of each other in scenes.
So they actually intercut the movies, or did they just slam them together?
They just slammed them together. They just chopped off the opening credit sequence and the ending credit sequence of all the short films and just strung them back to back to back to back. And that's what they were now selling. And he tells me, he says, congratulations, your movie is going to be seen by millions and millions of people in the next couple months.
Wow.
Yeah. And I kind of got that sense very quickly that this was going to be both good and bad.
What's interesting is you walked into that room as an outsider without a movie, and you left as the writer-director of what was, at least by outward appearances, the biggest movie at the market. Now, would you say that changed our luck?
Like night and day. And that became the go-to line when people were about to walk us out of their offices saying, you know, we're not interested. I would just say, well, it's very similar in tone to the movie that I just wrote and directed starring Robert Pattinson and James Franco. And the moment I could get those words out of my mouth, we were suddenly, the doors were being closed behind us and we were being asked to sit down and tell them more about the movie that we were trying to get funding for this year.
Eric started to hear from people he hadn't heard from in 15 years since he left Ohio. People he grew up with, writing to say congratulations. They'd always believed in him. They were so happy he'd finally made it. One guy wrote and said he Just had one live favor to ask. Could Eric get him some DNA from Robert Pattinson? Just a sock or some of his underwear. His wife would love it. Everyone was so anxious to see this movie. There were waiting lists and back orders. Eric couldn't even get a copy. It was all very exciting. For a while.
I looked the movie up on Netflix. I looked it up on Amazon. And these reviews were brutal. Mostly people felt deceived buying or renting what they thought was a feature film. And when you get it home and it's 5 student films, they're angry.
Can you look up a couple reviews right now?
Sure. So I'll just read a couple of them at random. I wouldn't even give this movie stars. It was unbelievably stupid. Simply awful. A waste of time. I'm typically easy to please when it comes to movies, and I went against the overwhelming reviews that said this movie was terrible. But no, it was terrible. There has only been 2 movies in my life that I turned off because they were this bad. Actually, I didn't turn it off. I had to walk away and try to forget about it. Do not rent this movie.
Oh, man. That is brutal.
I found one that said, I want to find the creator of this movie and go after him.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. There were people that wanted to sue me.
When you read something like that, how does that feel?
You know, I never intended to deceive anybody. They should be angry at the distributors, but people don't understand the business model that separates the filmmaker from the distributor.
So there are really no positive reviews anywhere? What about Amazon?
Oh, no, Amazon's are even worse.
Seriously?
Amazon gives it 1.5 out of 5 stars. There is 1 5-star review and 28 1-star reviews.
Ow. Well, read the 5-star review.
Let's see the 5-star review. When I got the movie and put it in, it didn't skip or anything. And it was... and it was cheaper than if I bought it at a store. Thanks, Amazon.
I think that one may be the most brutal of all. Have you finally seen the movie?
Oh yeah, I have watched it now.
And what's your review?
It's painful to sit through it, to be honest with you. Even my own film was difficult to watch. These movies felt like it was somebody's first attempt at making a film, which it was.
You said when you found out your film was going to be seen by millions of people that you thought it was going to be both good and bad. The bad was people felt deceived and angry. So what was the good?
The good was, what are we out here doing? What are filmmakers doing? I mean, for me, it's about telling stories and connecting with people. I got an email from somebody who had taken some of the scenes out of Grasshopper and recut their own trailer. So I'd actually wrote this person an email saying, hey, I don't know how you got the scenes, but I really like what you did with it. And she wrote back. She was from Bulgaria, and her email said, me English, not good. I like James Franco. Can you get me more of his films? So, again, when I made Grasshopper, I had no idea that it would be reaching some girl in Bulgaria.
People are often surprised to learn that in Hollywood, creating and owning are 2 different jobs. Eric may have given birth to his little film Grasshopper, but it's not his. The minute it sailed out into the world, he had no more say in what became of it. Parents know the feeling. We like to believe our children will always be ours, but the truth is, they'll find a life of their own. Eric and I didn't leave the market with $1 million for our next movie, but we're getting there. If all goes well, we'll be shooting it soon, and when it's finished, it too will sail out into the world and find a life of its own.